Much.
He's called Captain Slow on Top Gear. It's a bit unfair, isn't it? Maybe we should call James May Retro Major on his new programme.
Yes, he wants to show that retro toys are still fun and still relevant today. They range from a full-size Lego house to a bridge made completely of Meccano.
Yeah, before we talk to James, which we were going to do right now, actually. We're going to see a clip from an episode in a moment. But very good morning to you.
Morning.
They're not just retro toys, are they? I mean, Lego's not retro. It might have been brought in a while ago, but it's still very alive and well.
Lego, as we know, it's from 1958, but no, it's not retro. It's just long-standing. It's stood the test of time. It's still very relevant, I think. Meccano is now seen as rather old-fashioned, but I still think it's relevant because it's still the best way of learning about machinery, and machinery is still relevant no matter how much we come to depend on digital things and electronic control. You still need cranes and you still need levers.
And the film that we're going to talk about today is the one in which you look at Airfix, which is, I mean, it's still being made now, of course it is.
Yes.
But
it's not as big as it was. When I was a kid, so we're talking about the early 70s, the Airfix was just something that absolutely everybody did, and not just boys actually, despite what people think. I knew quite a few girls who did Airfix. That may have been the sort of girls I hung out with, I don't know. But I mean, things like Airfix models, they were educational. They were designed to teach you about things like, ships of the explorers, the lives of the saints and so on, and history of aviation. And making an Airfix Spitfire or something, that was the Microsoft flight simulator of our era. Yes. You made it and you held it up and you were flying it. That was the closest you could get.
You try and get some school kids interested in doing Airfix and then do something pretty ambitious. Let's have a look at the programme.
This week, Airfix. I take a bunch of unruly teenagers...
Was he what?
Was he mental?
No, he wasn't mental.
And show them the joy of model making.
It's a bit more like for older people, not really for kids.
Is it? I also realise a childhood dream.
There's England upside down!
And I have some work done on my face. I prove that I'm still down with the kids.
Who's Beyonce?
You don't know who Beyonce... You're actually joking me.
All with the aim of building the biggest model aeroplane the world has ever seen.
Do you think it would be possible to replicate the simpler Spitfire kit, but scale of 1 to 1?
no.
Sort of adult.
Now, we won't sort of go through exactly what happens in the programme, but this is the challenge is laid out. You want a full-size Airfix.
Yeah, it's something I thought about as a kid because the most popular Airfix model ever was their Spitfire. It was the first aeroplane kit they made, and it's 72nd scale, so it's about, the wingspan is about 6 inches. And then they made a slightly bigger one. They did their famous 24 scale one, which is about this big. But as a kid, I wondered, how big could you actually go making the same components? Could you make it full size? Now, there are complications. Engineers will tell you when you scale things up, you can't make a mouse as big as an elephant because its legs would snap. The size and the weight and the volume don't increase in the same proportion. So you have the same problem with the giant Airfix Spitfire. It's likely to go a bit floppy and collapse and so on. But the whole point of the story was Airfix was something that children did when I was a kid. You did it in a burst of enthusiasm. Very few people could do them well because it's actually very difficult. But the pleasure you got from putting it together and ending up with your sailing ship or your aeroplane or whatever was immense. And these days, making Airfix models is something that sort of slightly sad middle-aged and older men do, and they take it terribly seriously and do them very well. But I wanted kids to re-embrace the true spirit of Airfix.
I have to confess that when I was young, I could not bear doing Airfix because I didn't have the patience for it. They used to infuriate me, and I used to put the fuselage together, the two big pieces, and then kind of sort of lose interest, and it was too fiddly. But I guess that is partly you need to be in the right mindset, and that's what you try and teach the children to a degree, isn't it?
I think the problem is, yes, it was difficult. I used to spend hours and hours on it, and I know I never did any of them particularly well, and neither did any of my friends. But as a child, you don't see that. You look at it, and what you've done with the paint and the glue everywhere looks brilliant. And the thing I really loved about our giant Spitfire, without wishing to give too much of it away, is that at the end it looked like a Spitfire. It really did look like a Spitfire, but it still looked like an Airfix Spitfire made by children because, the colours weren't quite right and the wings were slightly wonky maybe. But it just had that look of, we've made this in a burst of sort of unbridled, gluey joy, and that was fantastic.
You set a challenge for the children during the programme. Let's have a quick look.
2 boxes of tanks. Chieftain tanks and T-62 tanks.
I'm effectively asking modern children to spend a few evenings in the 1960s. I'd have them eating spam fritters as well, to get the full effect.
You've got to find that bit 2A. They're normally numbered.
But here's something I hadn't reckoned with. The dads.
I played with airfixes when I was a kid all the time. I had Phantoms, I had tanks, I had everything. Aircraft carriers, the whole lot. You know, I'm still reliving my childhood, to be honest.
Yeah, he's a big kid.
Yeah.
Putting things together, manufacturing something, getting an end result.
And getting them perfect.
Trying to get them perfect, paint them and make them as good as possible.
As good as possible. It's not just Airfix, of course. This is Toy Stories. This is lots and lots of toys. And the Lego that you build is amazing, but
Yes.
no longer with us.
No longer with us. No, it lasted but a few days. It was a piece of Lego ephemera. But, I mean, I was very sad when it had to be demolished.
Well, tell us what you built for those people who haven't read about it in the papers.
It's a house. Well, it was a house, I should say. It was a real house. I lived in it for the weekend. It had Lego furniture, Lego fittings, a Lego shower, Lego carsy, all that sort of thing.
They had Lego slippers.
I had some Lego slippers. They fell apart, unfortunately. We hoped that the whole thing would be taken by either Legoland or maybe an eccentric collector or something like that, but it became too difficult to move it from where it was, which was in a vineyard in Surrey, so it had to be demolished. And I hated that because, you know, several thousand people were involved in total in putting this together, as they were with the Plasticine Garden and so on, and I felt rather bad about knocking it down.
It was knocked down, was it?
Oh, within days. But at the same time, it is Lego. It is designed. You know, the whole premise of Lego is you can push it apart with your thumb if you're 3 years old. That's the design brief. So.
And the other thing, of course, is your Plasticine Garden, which you did for the Chelsea Flower Show.
Just why, you're going to say.
Well, you know, there was sort of no holding you back, was there, with the,
Well, you see,
the toys?
I didn't know about plasticine when I was a kid. Well, I knew about it, but I wasn't very good with it because it's one of those sort of indeterminate art materials. I liked things like wood and metal that you could shape and cut accurately. Things that were floppy like fabric and plasticine. Because I'm not very arty, but I realised that there must be much more to plasticine than, you know, the little penguin that people always make or the little man with a hat on. So I went and found some experts and tried it on the public. The whole thing about this series is I envisaged it as a sort of science and technology programme. Basic physics and engineering made more accessible because they're with Lego and Meccano and stuff. But once we started doing them, the amazing thing, the thing that happened that really amazed me was that there was this massive enthusiasm for simply playing with stuff, and I thought we might be able to get a few other people involved. But thousands of people turned up to make plasticine flowers or put Lego bricks together, and not because they wanted to be on telly or anything. People genuinely loved doing it. So it became a sort of community art project.
Are you training people's brains, did I hear?
Well, Mensa is. I'm presenting the training of people's brains.
Oh,
yes.
what's that then?
Well, you know the little brain train puzzles that you get in the newspaper that say, you know, work out what number goes in this square or which way around this cube is. It's that sort of test, but it's on an interactive DVD that goes in your telly, and it turns into an IQ test. So you practice them. It's designed to stimulate bits of your brain that you might not normally use, and then you do an IQ test based on proper Mensa tests, and at the end you get an IQ score.
This stuff always frightens me. Were you very clever at school?
Not particularly.
Academically, you got lots of qualifications and stuff?
Nope.
Oh, it's
I was a
interesting,
slacker.
But you're kind of coming back to it in a funny kind of way.
I'm a very late developer. Yeah.
You didn't do badly, did you?
Nice to see you this morning. Thank you very much.
Lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You can see James May's Toy Stories tonight, BBC 2, 8 o'clock.
3 days of